Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about The Woman King 2022, which frankly I think might be one of the best movies. It is definitely a podium movie of the year, right? So 2022, this is definitely either gold, silver, or copper. This is a podium movie, right? It's very, very good. It's definitely top 3 movies of the year. I'm not sure if I want to give it my top movie because I remember there's been some good movies this year. I really like Thor: Love and Thunder. But The Woman King is dope. And that movie is fantastic. And it is every Dungeon Master content. So there's this is like at least my second video on this film. Because this film has lots and lots and lots of stuff for Dungeon Masters to learn. So first of all, spoilers for Woman King 2022. But it's a historical thing. It's a historical portrayal of what happened in Dahomey, Africa, in the 15th century. So, like, is it spoilers? I don't know. Like, anyway, spoilers for Woman King 2022. All right. So, The Woman King 2022 does a great job of helping us process urchin stories and noble stories, okay? So we are so incredibly blessed. We have this great Dungeons and Dragons structure, right? And the structure for Dungeons and Dragons is race, class, background. Okay, so you get to mix them. You get to mix them freely. It's really cool. You're like, I'm an Asimar, and I am a cleric, and my background is urchin. I came off the streets, and I don't even know whose my parents are, right? So like that, and or you could be like, ooh, I'm a tiefling, and I'm a fighter, and I'm of noble background, right? Which actually means, my tiefling king father had a relationship with, a woman who just worked in a tavern. So I'm actually of royal blood, but it's not recognized. So I can't really, it's not really proven, what my lineage is, right? So both urchin and noble background can have these questions about birth, right? And Woman King 2022 did a fantastic job of just absolutely spectacular job of making it so that you can kind of answer a mystery clearly on lineage, right? So let me explain how Woman King 2022 did this better than any movie I've ever seen, right? So guess what? Woman King 2022 has somebody with the urchin background, right? So they're literally an orphan, and they were dropped off, at some farmer's house, and so Naniska is the leader of the Akoji, and the Akoji are this super reaper troop of awesome female warriors, right? And so they received this girl at the age of 19 whose name is Nawi. And Nawi is given to the king of Dahomey, and the king puts her directly into the charge of the Akoji. And the Akoji are this absolute Reaper crew, this Reaper brigade. They're an elite unit, right? Like, so in space, in Warhammer, which is now linked, which is now a Magic Gathering set. And so, and it has a soul ring, and you'll find the soul ring in the Warhammer universe, and you'll find it in Dominaria, and you'll find it in the Forgotten Realms, right? Like, so Warhammer, D&D supplement material, in my humble opinion. They have a standard Space Marine unit, like, they'll have a standard Space Marine unit, and then they have an elite unit, right? So, like, and those would be, like, your Devastator crew, right? And that's what the Akoji are. They're like this absolute, like, Reaper crew of killers, right? Like, of the King's killers. They're an elite military force, right? They're not just like your scrub soldiers, right? So basically, Nawi is given to the Akoji, right? And she begins training as an Akoji warrior, right? Well, she has this thing where she has to go through all these brambles, right? And she wins this race, and she has to tear her way through this set of brambles, right? And it is, oh, I mean, it was hard to watch, man. Like, 'cause she gets brambles everywhere. And then Aniska comes over and goes, Nawi, you won the race today. Great job. But listen, and then one of the other Koji warriors are just picking the brambles out of her flesh. And so she says, hey, if you leave any of these brambles in, they can get infected. So make sure you get, and so Aniska says to the person who's pulling brambles out of Nawi, she's like, get every single bramble because it can get infected. She doesn't use the term infected, but she's like, because she can get really sick if you don't get them all out, right? And then she's like, get this one, and she's turning her body, and she turns and she goes, oh, hey, snap, you got an old scar on the back of your shoulder, Nawi. And Nawi's like, yeah, the farmer they gave me to when I came from the orphanage was when I was just a little baby. He called it the devil's mark, right? And Naniska is like, it kind of like, frowns. So what ends up happening is Naniska was taken prisoner when she was young, and they treated her, absolutely terrible as a prisoner, and took liberties with her that should never have been taken. And it's one of the darker parts of the movie. And from the terrible experience she had as a prisoner, she ends up with child, right? But since she's an Akoji warrior, she ends up giving one of the other Akoji warriors just runs the child off to the orphanage, right? So Naniska is starting to suspect that she's looking at her daughter, right? And sure enough, Nawi is Naniska's daughter. And this is the thing. This was brilliant, and this is what you're going to use as a dungeon master. So the way that Naniska could tell it was her daughter was that when she was right before, so Naniska is out in the woods, and her favorite Akoji warrior friend is with her, and basically she cuts the baby that she's just had with a knife, with a tiny cut, and she puts inside the cut a shark's tooth, a tiny shark's tooth, and then the baby's skin heals over. And so later in the movie, Naniska really wants to know if Nawi is her daughter, right? And so what she does is she just takes a knife, cuts open the scar, and there's the shark's tooth. And I was like, holy cows. Everybody in the theater's like, oh, Nawi is Naniska's daughter, right? And it was like this big moment in the film. And I was like, that's how you do an urchin background. That's how you do a noble background, right? You need some way to prove that the child is inarguably this person's child, right? And then you could have this cool reveal like they had in The Woman King, right? So now in Dungeons and Dragons, because it's connected to Magic the Gathering and all the different realms of Magic the Gathering, you could do this in a million different ways, right? So one, you could do a ward, right? And this child, if the skin on their back is exposed to the moonlight, the day after the harvest ends, it'll light up. And this was put on the child at birth, right? Like by some wizard or some tinker, right? And so, or you can even use you could use a fox's tooth, right? In a wound, in a scar wound, right? Or if they're like a tiefling, maybe their horns have exactly the same pattern, those kind of things. But you should absolutely see The Woman King. It is stunningly brilliant film, beautifully made, with lots and lots of cool narrative elements that can be brought right over into your Dungeons and Dragons game. I highly recommend you get out and see The Woman King immediately. It is definitely one of the top 3 movies. It's definitely gold, silver, copper for American films of 2022. All that's my humble opinion. I'm eager to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.